Hi guys, welcome back to week 2 of Inktober. So starting with October 8, which the prompt was frail, I went with a fortune teller, an elderly fortune teller. So day 8 of Inktober, I made this piece. First I drew this out and I used this little Pentel brush pen for all the outlines, and I also used a dip pen for the super fine lines here. Watered down India ink for the washes because I still didn't have the cool gray marker yet, and I submitted a completely different picture to Instagram. If you want to see that picture, you can head over there. I later went in and added shading with the Copic marker and resubmitted the picture to Instagram. Honestly, I don't know whether or not I made things better or worse, so you be the judge. You can tell me. Go to my Instagram page and look at the two and tell me which one you like better. Okay, so that was day 8. Day 9 was swing, and I immediately thought of trapeze artists. And so first I was going to show how high up and how far away they are. So they're way up in the clouds and the audience is down here. And then I thought, well, I kind of want to zoom in on the trapeze artists more. So I started looking at different reference photos to try and come up with a pose. Really like that pose. But I wanted to get the facial expression of like surprise or excitement. And so that's what I went with. Day 9 of Inktober, and as you can see there, I messed up on the eyes and I had to color over it, and I used the white Sigmo gel pen. Let me pull that out. I forgot to pull that out. The Signo Uniball gel pen, and I messed up his eye, so I went over it with this gel pen, and then I had to let that dry, which I'm really impatient, but I did it. And then I went over it with a really fine tip marker. I don't remember which marker I used because I've slept since then, but there you go. That's why the glare, because the gel pen dries a little bit glossy, unfortunately. And I had a hard time getting these eyes to draw over the gel pen. It took a little while. I'd have to lay a line down, let it dry, lay another line on top of it, let it dry, just to get it dark enough to where it didn't look weird. My idea was, this is his first time on the real high up trapeze, and you can see the look of surprise on his face. There's also a bird flying, and the clouds were done with that brush pen. So you can see, not very good with it. I got a little better here, and I'd say this cloud's probably pretty good. So I did sort of get better with that pen. Still not anywhere near the level that I'd like to be, but hey, it's a process. Okay, so, and I went and closed my sketchbook. Good job. The next day was pattern, and at first I was going to do like an actual pattern. And of course I needed to do circus theme, so I put an elephant in the middle, and this was supposed to be like the tent, so it was going to be red and white stripes around. And then I went, well, clowns have that ruffle and the ball on the ends of their nose. So I made a pattern out of those shapes. And then I thought 2 on the nose with the pattern idea. So I really thought about it, and male pattern baldness came into my mind. And I said, I will draw a clown who's showing us the top of his head, and he's fairly dejected. He's holding his hat, kind of, in this sad pose because he's embarrassed of his bald head. And so, there we go. Day 10, pattern. And as you can see, I used the Copic sketch marker to put a nice background for this guy to make him stand out a little bit. And as you can tell, I'm not at all an expert at using this marker, so it's very streaky, but I tried to get it to where the streaks were fairly uniform, so it didn't really stand out too bad. So. And I colored the nose in with Prismacolor markers. Because when I was young, well, hey, I'm still cheap, even now. I was gonna say, when I was young, I was too cheap to buy Copics, but I only own 2 Copics, so I guess I'm still cheap. Alright, so the next day, day 11, was snow. So I went with the circus wagons. Got trapped in a blizzard, so they just kind of hunkered down and they're camping out. And here you can see I was practicing icicles. And I had seen a lot of pictures on Instagram where people were doing washes in their backgrounds, and I really wanted to try that. So that's what I did. Unfortunately, the placement, as you see, is way too high. I was trying to use the rule of thirds, but if I was going to do that with a wash, I really should have, instead of putting it on the top third, should have put it on this bottom third and given the piece room to breathe, but I didn't, so it's all scrunched up here in the top. Learning experience. Okay, so I used the India ink for a wash, and the way I got these white spots, I used liquid masking fluid for watercolors. So you lay down the spots, you let it dry, and then you paint over it. And when your paint's dry, then you can rub the masking fluid off, and it leaves behind the white of the paper. Oddly, I don't remember which masking fluid brand I used, and you can't really tell, but some of these spots are actually yellow, so it did have some kind of reaction to the paper. And also, there's this weird starburst effect happening where I guess the ink was kind of trying to get away from the masking fluid. It doesn't happen on all of them, which is odd, just some of them. I kind of like that effect, and it works with the snow theme, but just be aware, if you don't like that effect, test the fluid out with, I use the India ink watered down. Test that before you actually use it on your real piece if you don't want that effect, okay? Day 12 was dragon. And I immediately thought of a fire breather. Now, my fire breather originally was going to have face tattoos, but after I sketched it out, I was like, that might be really hard to convey nicely without getting all jumbled up with the details. So I just left him a non-tattooed man. And so this is day 12 dragon. These are watercolors. And I taped off the edges and used India ink to do my washes, and I used the dip pen. for the really fine detail and the sketching out of the sky. I really didn't like the way I was going from having to go from this sketch to this larger image. It's not that much larger, but it is larger. And it's on a different piece of paper. So I basically redrew everything on the bigger piece of paper and then inked it. And I'm like, that's double the work. I don't really like this. We're gonna have to figure out something new. So I think this was actually the first time that I chose to use my printer and my light box. And what I did was I took a picture of this in my iPad and I made it a larger size, and I darkened up the lines because I went from that blue sketch, which is hard to print. I knew it wouldn't work well with the light box. I made the lines darker, made the background white, because when I took the picture of my sketchbook, the paper was, of course, like a yellowish beige color, and printed it out and used my light box underneath the Bristol board. And the brand of light box I have, hold on just a second. It's called CraftyGeekENT. And this light box is really nice. Let me pull it out for you. This is bright enough that I have no problem going through a regular piece of printer paper and a piece of Bristol board. I got it off of Amazon. I'll put the link in the description below. And this is 11 by 14. Just this area. So it's actually a little bigger, but the light area is 11 by 14. And if you guys want to see that technique of using the iPad to darken the lines and printing it out and light box and all that, let me know. I'll show it to you. Day 13 was Ash. And I thought immediately of a clown, so this clown is a heavy smoker. And all of his cigars have long lines of ash at the ends of them. So, there you go. Day 13, Ash. Day 14 was Overgrown. And I thought of two different ideas. First, I thought of the bearded lady. And then second, I thought of those poor guys that are covered in hair. Even their faces and their hands. They're just absolutely covered. It's a medical condition. I forgot what it's called. If you know, comment below. But I thought it might be difficult for me to convey that this person would be covered in hair. I thought it might just look like I scribbled all over him, so I didn't want to do that. So I went with the bearded lady, and I was doing a lot of research for circuses, and ran across all these different posters, vintage posters, and I really liked the idea of making the bearded lady drawing in a poster style. So that's what I did with this one, the bearded lady. I'm not a huge fan of the way the beard turned out. I was using that brush pen again, and clearly do not have the experience. I also messed up horribly on the hands. I just couldn't get them right. And I even went over this thing several times with the gel pen, and you can see I was having trouble drawing over the gel pen. But I even tried white acrylic ink to cover up the hands. It just wasn't covering as well as I wanted. Maybe I was just too impatient. That's probably more like the truth there. But anyway, the bearded lady. That is the wrap up for week 2 of Inktober 2019. Yay! Thank you so much for watching my video. If you like what you saw, please hit that thumbs up button. also, while you're at it, check out my Facebook and Instagram at CraftyGeekENT.